topic. So this is only we are technical guidelines. So the first part of the hepatitis A. So you all know that will be the hepatitis A is one of the hepatotropic virus causing that will be the acute viral, mainly is acute viral hepatitis.
Na video delhi.
Pardon?
On பண்ணுங்க.
You able to hear me? Hello? Able to see the slide?
The slide
Able to see the slides?
Yes, sir. Yes,
Yes,
sir.
sir.
Okay, thank you. So the main objectives here today it will be we have been participating for will be knowing about it as one of the refresher training. This type of the training we are given already is given 1 year before, but since the number of the treatment centers increased, we wanted to re-emphasize, refresh the new nodal officer has come, for which will be we have been again we are conducting such a program. That the program having comprises of two parts. One is will be technical guidelines, second is operation guidelines. So that will be each session is over, so you can ask your doubts, so they clear that will be with the expertise. So that is will be important instruction given to all nodal officers. So that if you have any doubt further after completion of your training program, you can have upload your questions through the WhatsApp created for the Tamil Nadu National Viral Hepatitis, so that we can clear then and there. So main focus about will be here to be will be what we are day-to-day activities, what we are seeing that will be the mainly hepatotropic viruses A, B, E, and C. These are the things we ought to have seen that among which a focus mainly about will be hepatitis B and hepatitis C, for which you will be actually you can treat that is patients at the sites. So you all be considered as treatment sites, except the Madras Medical College is a model treatment site, treatment center. You all be treatment center for treating that is hepatitis B and hepatitis C. So the main objectives, I once again say that will be it is the given a golden opportunity by the through our National Viral Hepatitis Center for the facilitating for the treatment of hepatitis C, chronic hepatitis B and hepatitis C. In addition to that will be for the logistic arrangements in the form of facility for the testing, for that is deduction, for the screening, deduction, and having confirmation, as well as doing that will be in a viral load followed with the drugs. I think everybody might have received all the drugs. Hello? Whether I have received the hepatitis B and C drugs according to our requirement?
Yes, sir.
No, sir, not received.
From which college? From which?
Tirupur, not received, sir.
Tirupur, what happened there? So we have received, we have sent only at 25. These are newly formed medical. We will send within another week time. We will send you to that according to your need. We will send you that. It's not a question at all. We have initially sent only at 24 medical college.
Thank you, sir.
So we will distribute the Vellore Medical College. We have the drugs from which we can have a given that is an otherwise will be you tell me your requirement. According to the requirement, we will send you the this week, next week itself. Within a week time, you can receive the drugs. It is not an issue at all. So simultaneously, we are making arrangement for testing kits. Testing kits in the form of will be to detect that is hepatitis B and hepatitis C for as a screening, as well as will be for confirmation in the form of will be viral load if required. So this my part here to have after the introduction of this, I am taking that is hepatitis A virus. You all know that hepatitis A is a non-enveloped RNA virus belonging to the pycnorovirus family with the 4 genomes with the 1 serotype. The transmissions mainly to that is a fecal-oral transmissions. If that is the incubation periods comes will be 4 to 5 weeks durations. It is mainly spread through there will be person to person and due to the poor personal hygiene and overcrowding. So the excretion of the stools occurs only after the 7 to 14 days after the onset of the clinical symptoms. And it is a diagnostic of acute HIV infection. No carrier state has been identified. This only, it will cause only acute viral hepatitis. There is no any chronic viral hepatitis by due to the hepatitis A virus. Next. So they already said it will be the incubation period is 14 to 15 to 45 days. The prodromal symptoms is common to all hepatitis A virus, B virus, E virus, everything is same. That is will be systemic and quite variable. The constitutional symptoms mainly will be the fever, anorexia, nausea, vomiting, fatigue, malaise, arthralgia, myalgia, and all so many things. Photophobia, pharyngitis, cough, chorea may precede the onset of the jaundice. These are all the constitutional symptoms may precede before the clinical development of the jaundice with the serum bilirubin more than 3 mg/%. And also you have present with the dark urine and the clay colors, the transient the clay color stools may be noticed by the patient 1 to 5 days before the onset of clinical jaundice. So the dark urine and as well as the clay color stools may appear before there will be onset of jaundice. With the onset of the clinical jaundice, the constitutional symptoms subsided. That is called, we used to always call the prodromal symptoms. Prodromal symptoms will be the nausea, vomiting, I said. Then you have a jaundice. Then some individual may have that will be tender hepatomegaly on clinical examination, tender hepatomegaly and right upper quarter pain and discomfort. During the recovery phase, you have the constitutional symptoms that disappear. All constitutional symptoms disappear, but usually some liver enlargement, liver abnormalities, biochemicals are still may evident. So they have a constitutional symptom, jaundice phase, as well as will be recovery phase. There are 3 phases which see that will be. So this is a laboratory diagnosis. How to diagnose will be hepatitis A virus. You see that will be the first onset. We see that in this diagram, the fecal shedding of the virus is earlier than the clinical development of the jaundice. The fecal shedding in the form of fecal HA virus, they followed by the jaundice along with the biochemical elevation of that will be the transaminases ALT elevations, then the development of the IgM antibody to the HA virus. The IgM antibody HA virus is positive any individual for hepatitis A virus, that will be the acute viral hepatitis. Whereas in the convalescent recovery phase will be IgG anti-HBV may present. So virus present in all biological fluids, for example, the liver, bile, stools, and blood during the late incubation periods and acute pre-icteric and pre-symptomatic phase of the illness. In acute hepatitis, the clinical jaundice serum blue levels are above 2.5 milligrams and the serum alanine transferase is more than 10 times the upper limit of the normal. So I said will be the IgM antibodies against hepatitis A viruses are generally detected 5 to 10 days before the onset of the symptoms and can persist for 6 months. Where anti-IgM antibodies indicate, I said the acute infection. IgG antibodies is against HIV virus become a predominant antibodies during the convalescence and remains detectable indefinitely. So IgG anti-HIV does not imply that will be is having an acute viral hepatitis. IgM anti-HIV is only indicates the acute viral hepatitis. So the anti-HIV total antibodies, both IgG, IgM or specific IgG will indicate the immunity to the hepatitis A either because of the past infection or with the vaccinations. The transaminase will be the aspartate, the AST and ALT increases the variable degree during the prodromal illness and precede the rise in the bilirubin. Before the onset of jaundice, may rise will be this one. Next. So the management, that is all most of the time will be a self-limiting disease. It may not be required for this. So the clinical promote the symptoms may not be appreciable during the infants as well as the children's. It is very much will be symptomatic. The all acute viral symptoms, the constitutional symptoms, everything will be symptomatic more in the adults, not in much in the pediatric age groups. So you must be very careful to the patient comes to our outpatient clinics with a constitutional symptom, with the possibility of some episodic or that is sporadic or some outbreak is there, you must be taken to account, or is a routine screening to be. So there is, so no antiviral drugs will be in the hepatitis J virus. Recovery will be complete. No clinical sequelae. You have a low case fatality, and the prevention is improving the social conditions. Inactivated attenuated vaccine, which is a safe, immunogenic, and effective, it is available. You must know that it may present. This will be the when you screen routinely in clinically during their routine practice in a clinical practice, it may present as acute and chronic liver failure. It may present as acute episode over the chronic liver disease. For example, is alcohol liver disease there, where the patient suddenly deteriorated. So it may be the virus, one of the possibility. Hepatitis A virus is maybe one of the possible as acute episode. So in this context, you must have aware about there will be the clinical profile. Clinical base as isolated as well as in the combination may acute and chronic liver failure. Provided will be there is something will be mixing up that is poor sanitation. It may lead on to have a acute episode, and sometimes it will be present will be acute and chronic liver failure. So this will be the whole spectrum of that will be a clinical spectrum of that is hepatitis A virus. If you have any doubts, please ask me that so that I can respond to you. Hello? Hello?
No doubt, sir.
No doubt. We are timely, we are not giving any hepatitis B, A vaccines. A vaccine we are not given. Okay, okay.
chat box name mail ID mail ID name சொல்லுங்க சார் chat box கனெக்ட் ஆயிடுறோம் சார் ஃபர்தரா கம்யூனிகேட் பண்ணுங்க
நேம்
சார் chat boxல அவங்களோட மெயில் ஐடியும்
நீ வந்து சொல்லிடு மாமா. So the next topic will be we are proceeding to the hepatitis B virus.
சார் குட் மார்னிங் சார். சார் கனெக்ட் இருக்க எல்லாரும் வந்து சாட் பாக்ஸ்ல உங்களோட மெயில் ஐடியும் ஃபோன் நம்பரும் கரெக்டான ஃபோன் நம்பரும் போட்டுருங்க சார். Yes, sir.
Any doubt you can call me.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Sir, good morning, sir. Good morning, respected professors, senior consultants, and my dear friends. Really great pleasure for me to be in this forum to discuss something about National Viral Hepatitis Control Program, about the role of hepatitis B, how hepatitis B is going to have an impact in your daily life. And I would like to thank Professor Narayanaswamy, sir, who gave me an opportunity to be here to discuss something about hepatitis B in this forum, sir. So, as we all know, it's such complicated area to tackle hepatitis B daily in our day-to-day life, because we have been frequently encountering hepatitis B in your practice. When you have been seeing hepatitis B as a common scenario, it's incidentally detected asymptomatic hepatitis B can be a possibility. It can present like acute hepatitis, it can present like chronic hepatitis, it can take acute and chronic liver failure, it can present like multiple other complications also, it can present the extra GA, extra hepatic manifestations, and so many other complications can be there if you're going to tackle a patient with chronic hepatitis B. So as of now, the major major concern in India to tackle hepatitis B is one of the most important determining factor, because if you want to tackle hepatitis B, it's one of the long-term therapy, and moreover, the cost constraints, everything has to be ascertained, and moreover, whether the patient is going to adhere to the treatment, all those things has to be analyzed properly. And how are you going to monitor the patient, whether the patient is responding to therapy or not? All those things has to be ascertained properly if you are going to manage a patient with chronic hepatitis B. So before switching over the discussion of the main area, so briefly about the epidemiology. So the estimated around 325 million people worldwide are being reported to have around chronic HBV or HCV infections. As of now, the data are being concerned. Among that, HBsAg positivity in the general population will be ranging around 1.1 to 12%, with the average prevalence of around 3 to 4%. And India, approximately 40 million people are being chronically infected with hepatitis B. And chronic HPV infection accounts for around 40% of the hepatocellular carcinoma, and only 20 to 30% of cases of cirrhosis in India has been reported because of chronic HPV. As we all know, the most common etiology because of alcohol-related as well as other virology has been determined. And if you're going to look for the event of hepatitis B to progress for chronic cirrhosis as well as hepatocellular carcinoma, there are high possibility around 4 to 5% of the patients can land up with, as we all know, that one of the dreadful dangerous complications like hepatocellular carcinoma can also develop in the process of management of hepatitis B. The common risk factors, as we are well aware, one of the blood-borne infections, if you're going to look into that, it could be because of multiple blood products transfusion or being hemodialysis, or male-to-male sex workers, or because of female sex workers, sexual relationship, or even races, or so many other things. If you're going to use prisoners, migrants, truckers, even the medical officers who are being exposed to patients who are being exposed to. So all those persons are being concerned with the major risk factors to tackle with as per national. Also we need to look for the patient with a coexisting evidence of HIV infection, because these are all the populations will be having more vulnerability if the patient is going to present with HPV, also with HCV infection, along with HIV infection, because all these things may correlate, may coexist together. And one thing, if it is going to happen, the HIV and other complications is going to worsen the scenario, the 2 to 3-fold ratio, 2 to 3-fold increase risk of worsening of presentation. And those things I'll be taking on in my further slides of presentation. See, if you're going to look, even when you're going to screen a population, we need to screen the entire population of mothers, siblings, family members, all those things. And we need to do the basic key testing assessment if you want to manage a patient with hepatitis B. So, as we all know that the major thing which is going for chronicity is, based on the literature, is being hepatitis B as well as hepatitis C, which will go for chronicity, and it may go for fibrotic and liver cirrhosis, and it may land up in liver cancer. So there may be a prolonged gestation period will be there, and with that we need to be able to establish our diagnosis based upon your clinical presentation and scenarios. So what is the present scenario which is happening right now? There are multiple diagnostic tests, there are multiple key investigations are being there, and so many newer technologies. As we all know that HPV agent, apart from that anti-HPV4 antigen, apart from that, we are having HPV DNA along with HPV RNA also has been taken, and recent studies is being mentioned by Professor Sarin's statement. So all those things, so HPV RNA also can be used, in the analysis of management of hepatitis B viral load and assessment. So diagnostic and treatment services have been so far well established in India, but how far it is being successful, we need to have a strong viral control program as to be in a strong, we have to establish in a strong manner, and the screening particulars has to be done in a strong manner to analyze all those things properly. So as per National Viral Hepatitis Control Program, we need to prevent and control viral hepatitis. The target is we need to provide free of charge screening programs, also diagnostic and treatment and counseling services also to be done. As per by 2030, we all should make that the event of, what are the main aims we need to combat, we need to come down, and we are targeting of elimination of hepatitis B as well as C by around 2030. That is a major impact for us to tackle. But how far it is going to be successful, as the day progresses, only we can able to analyze. Next to that, we need to reduce risk of morbidity as well as mortality based upon B or C or A or E. What are the viruses you are going to tackle? And we need to achieve a significant reduction, because once the patient is going to land up with chronic liver disease, either the patient is going to be compensated or decompensated. We need to prevent the patients to go for hepatocellular carcinoma and all those things to be prevented. This is the basic virology. What you're going to look at is a double-stranded DNA virus, which belongs to the family Hepatinovirus. As we all know, there are multiple modalities of transmission, one by perinatal transmission, and occasionally by horizontal transmission can also be reported. And apart from that, sexual contact and pet witness transmission is well known. And what are the various clinical presentations? Why I'm rushing up the slides, because we are having only 30 minutes of presentation in such a wide area. So my intention is to discuss only the key points, what you're supposed to know before you're winding up this session. So This clinical presentation could be because of acute and chronic disease. So acute manifestations, as we all know, it could be like similar to hepatitis A or E. It can present with anictic hepatitis or it can present with icteric hepatitis. But basic incubation period for the patient before landing up in chronicity, we need to consider for a period of almost 30 days to 180 days for the basic incubation period. Once a patient is going for chronicity, the patient can be asymptomatic or the patient can progress to hepatocellular carcinoma, chronic hepatitis or cirrhotic and other presentation. Always you should remember, if you're tackling a patient with hepatitis B, we need to look for extrahepatic manifestations also can happen because various extrahepatic manifestations like glomerulonephritis, dermatological complications, genetic prostate, and so many other syndromes and polyarthralgia, rheumatic complications, cardiovascular and neurological, so many other extra GI manifestations also can be there if you're going to tackle a patient with hepatitis B. These are all add-on pointers for you to analyze your clinical presentation, for you to diagnose your clinical clinical pointers can be taken into account if you're planning to manage a patient with chronic hepatitis B. So the complete eradication of hepatitis B is definitely a difficult one because it occurs rarely, but there might be, once the T cell is going to maintain for a longer period of time, the clinical recovery definitely is going to be well. And if they're going to look for the DNA and other loads, the viral entry is definitely going to be in control. So our target, we need to maintain a proper T cell immunity has to be developed, and we need to analyze whether the patient is in good control, is there or not, based upon your liver parameters, your enzymes, and based upon your fibrous and other things that I'll be discussing in my upcoming slides. So as you all know that the most modality of transmission is by perinatal transmission. 90% of the infection is going to be transmitted perinatally, and these kind of patients can go for chronicity. And once a patient is going for chronicity, it may be taking around 20 years, 15 years, or 30 years. There are some papers being reported in that. So 20 to 50% of the infections between the age of 1 and 5 years, and less than 5% for adult acquired infection. So around 5% of the patients among the patients who are developing chronic hepatitis B in adults can go for chronicity. That is one thing that has to be taken into account. But our primary target, we need to control the perinatal mode of transmission because that's the main area for which the patient can land up in chronicity for more than 90% of the population. So if you're going to treat a patient with acute hepatitis B, nothing much to discuss. The patient can have a symptomatic support we need to take care of whether the patient is going for acute encephalopathy or not, whether the patient is going for coagulopathy, whether the patient is going to land up with ACLF or ALF. All those presentations based on the clinical manifestations you are going to tackle. And once the patient is going to land with fulminant hepatitis, if the patient is having underlying cirrhosis, so at that point of juncture, if the patient, if you're going to tackle a patient with acute hepatitis B, there is no major indication for antivirus unless and otherwise the patient is going to have a compensated, a decompensated cirrhosis or acute fulminant hepatitis B. So in that phase, if the patient is having coagulopathy or worsening in the background of encephalopathy or worsening, all those presentations, you can consider the patient with antiviral support, tenofovir, based upon your clinical presentation and based upon your other line of coexisting complications, you are going to decide your management. So initial phase of acute hepatitis B doesn't deserve antiviral if the patient is asymptomatic most of the time. And once the patient is going for chronic hepatitis, which means there is high, low to, approximately around 30 to 50% of the patients with chronic HBV have a past history of acute hepatitis, and predominantly in low or intermediate prevalent areas. And if you're going to look into this, in these high prevalent areas, what predominantly be a perinatal infection is the mode of transmission, as we are looking into that. So it could be asymptomatic, or it could be mimicking acute hepatitis or manifest as hepatic failure. Some patients may have evidence of exacerbations of infections if the patient is having underlying chronic hepatitis. So as we all know that the one basic things, what we have to remember, once a patient is being going for chronic hepatitis, chronic hepatitis, we need to look for evidence of chronic liver disease in the form of worsening of presentation, like all the stigma of chronic liver disease has to be analyzed, and we need to see that alpha fetoprotein has to be measured, because sometimes in the background of chronic hepatitis, there are some possibility for the patient, even if the patient doesn't have evidence of hepatocellular carcinoma or any evidence of SOS in the liver being detected, there are some possibility, even with this kind of presentation, some evidence of alpha fetoprotein reports are being there as per EA's position statement, what have been mentioned. So the progression to cirrhosis is suspected when there is evidence of hypersplenism. When there is evidence of hypersplenism. So once the patient is going for hypersplenism, as we all know that the patient can land up with anemia, leukopenia, or platelet thrombocytopenia in the background of splenomegaly. So always all those things, we look for evidence of portal hypertension, other possibility. And once the synthetic function is going down, like hyperalbuminemia, the patient's PTINR, everything is going to get prolonged. Your MELD score is going to get worse, and that's the indication for you to decide whether the patient is going for chronicity and worsening of presentation, whether the patient is landing up with ACLF and other complications, followed by whether the patient deserves a hepatic transplantation is indicated or not, based upon how the patient is going to manifest. So what is the natural cause? Most of the time it will be improving on its own. It could be asymptomatic, and other factors. Suppose if the patient is having coexisting other viral infections like HIV or HCV, and based upon your gender, whether you're male or female, or based upon your age criteria, if you're less than 30 or more than 30, or whether the patient, if you're going to alcohol consumption, or you will be having a predominant other or non-epitrophic viruses. It could be even if I see a few days before, I've seen a patient with dengue also having coexisting acute hepatitis B. They're having low platelets and other things. So if you're going to manage this kind of scenarios, so always you should not think only hepatitis B. We need to tackle with other non-epitrophic viruses also, because these things can also worsen your clinical scenario. That is the most important thing if you're going to look into the natural cause and phases of management of a patient's chronic hepatitis B infection. So if you're going to look into the chronicity, is more of theoretical part. What I want to discuss in this area, there are 4 phases are there. One is by immune tolerant, and one is by immune active, and one is by inactive phase, and another one is by immune escape phenomena. So briefly about this immune tolerance, which means the patient has been acquired the infection perinatally, but the patient is going to show evidence of HBeAg positivity and high levels of HBeAg DNA, but the infection part is not going to set in as of now, because the immune tolerance phase will be usually lasting for almost around 10 to 30 years, for which a very low rate of spontaneous HBeAg clearance will be there. So the active liver disease is not going to much establish if the patient is going to be immune tolerance, and most of the time will be having normal ALT levels and minimal changes in your FibroScan and and your liver biopsy reports. Once a patient is going for immune clearance, these are all the various phases, the 4 phases as what have been discussed. The replication phase, the immune clearance, what is going to happen? The spontaneous HBeAg clearance will be going to be there, but it's going to increase annually at a rate of around 10 to 20% of the patients. There shows evidence of HBeAg clearance. Once a patient is going for this thing, which is frequently happening in 2nd and 3rd decade of life. So most of the time, the patient can have a worsening of symptoms. They are often preceded by a worsening of HBV DNA, and exacerbation may tend to happen in this kind of scenario by sudden increase in immune-mediated lysis of infected hepatitis. So always you need to look for exacerbation of the presentation of chronic hepatitis B, or it could be because of acute hepatitis B. For this, if you want to determine, if you're going to look into the multiple articles, we need to look for IgM anti-HBsC levels, because sometimes it will be positive in acute phase, it will not be there in this phase of in a patient with having evidence of replicatory phenomena in chronic hepatitis B. So if you're going to look into that, elevation in IgM anti-HBsC titer will always misdiagnose in patient acute HBV infection, and an increase in the serum alpha fetoprotein concentrations also may raise the concerns about SCC. So always you need to see in which phase of viral hepatitis you are being there, and you need to analyze all those things before considering the patient with a higher level of investigations in the management of hepatitis B. So this may lead you to misdiagnosis, and acute hepatitis B may always mimic the patient with a replicative phase, immune clearance phase. So always you need to consider whether the patient HBsAg along with HBeAg and anti-HBsC levels, IgM anti-HBsC, and total, all those things has to be considered in the management of a patient with chronic hepatitis B. So severe exacerbations, we need to treat in a specialized center, and always you should remember that HBeAg seroconversion and clearance doesn't mean only, because sometimes what will happen, not all exacerbations lead to HBeAg seroconversion and clearance, and HBV DNA from the serum, what is a phenomenon what is called as abortive immune clearance. So if the patient may develop a recurrent exacerbations with an intermittent disappearance of serum HBV DNA with or without a transient loss of HBeAg. So repeated hepatitis of repeated, so if this kind, even if the patient is having a HBeAg clearance which is not going to persist for a longer time, but repeated hepatitis of repeated episodes of hepatitis may increase the risk of developing cirrhosis as well as hepatocellular carcinoma. So our indication, we need to see, even if the patient is having non-HBeAg, we need to look for other pre-core mutants and other things if you're going to manage. So This is another about a low or non-replicative phase. In this phase, what you're going to look into that will be predominantly asymptomatic. It will be HBV DNA will be undetectable, normal serum ALT levels. But sometimes this kind of patients can have worsening of ALT as well as sometimes the patient can go for inflammatory and fibrotic changes can set up in this kind of patients also. And our most important thing, so we need to do a baseline ALT levels, HBV DNA over a period of 12 months of period in a patient with the chronic hepatitis B, because we need to see a low replicative phase is there or not. Also, we need to look for evidence of HBsAg less than 1000 IU per ml in a HBV EAG negative patient with serum HBV DNA. If it is going to be less than 2000 IU per ml, identifies the inactive carrier state with the high diagnostic accuracy. So inactive carrier state, if you want to diagnose, do HBsAg and HBeAg with serum HBV DNA. So which will yield like diagnostic accuracy for almost around 90 to 100% of the population. So once a patient is having HB, that's this another clinical scenario. We all should remember that HBeAg negative chronic hepatitis, because why it's going to happen? Because if you are going to look into the pattern of HBeAg, one because of wild type virus and another one is because of mutated virus. So if the mutated strains is going to happen, what is going to be there? There may be evidence of pre-core or promoter gene promotions, variations, everything will be there, followed by, even if the patient is going to be HBeAg negative, some patient can land up with fibrotic and other changes with worsening of liver function. So always see, there are so many studies what they may mention about if you are going to look for HBsAg, even for HBsAg, if you are going to do only monoclonal antibodies level, it will not be much of beneficial. We need to look for polyclonal because we need to see all those things as a plate assay if you want to look for evidence of hepatitis B is there or not. So all the HBV is going to resolution of chronic hepatitis B, usually uncommon scenario, but there may be around 0.5 to 2% of the population can have delayed clearance of hepatitis HBsAg, but patient case reports are being around 0.1 to 8% in Asian countries. So, but even then, if the patient shows evidence of resolution, we need to look for evidence of hepatocellular carcinoma to supervene is there or not, because sometimes what will happen, hepatitis C or HDV virus can always will be there, and the patient may be having older age criteria, more than 50 years. These are all the pointers always to be looked into and upon if you're planning to manage a patient with chronic hepatitis. So how are you going to assess and stage your chronic HBV infection? Because we need to look for the serological markers. We need to do the baseline CBC and other parameters, baseline lab parameters, and measurement of HBV DNA serially, and look for your fibroscope and see what is the PIP4 index. Is nothing but AST platelet ratio, AST, ALT, other things has to be taken into account if you are going to look for fibroscope. And also you need to calculate APRI. So AST platelet ratio index is a significant pointer for you to assess your cirrhosis, because if the patient APRI, if it is going to be more than 2, there is high possibility for this patient to land up in cirrhosis. And these are all the various non-invasive tests, and one part is FibroScan. See, I would like to discuss something about this FibroScan. There are certain contraindications. There are certain errors of reporting. If the patient is having high jaundice level, most of the time, sometimes we'll be having a false error report, maybe there, but always you need to take a gray zone. Say if the patient is having FibroScan value, for example, if the patient is going to present less than 6, the patient possibility of fibrotic changes will be less. And if the patient is going to have in the range of 6 to 9, it might indicate the patient is being in gray zone. But once the patient is going to be more than 9 and the possibility of advanced fibrosis is there to set in, and once the patient is going to be more than 12, it indicates the patient is landing up in cirrhosis. So if you are going to look into this data, so FibroScan can be also used as a pointer to assess whether the patient is having worsening of liver function is there or not. So serological markers, as I discussed with you, HBsAg, HBeAg. So if once the HBsAg, if it is going to be persist for more than 6 months of period on a consecutive interval, that indicates the patient is landing up with the chronic hepatitis B. And also you need to look for HBeAg, because HBeAg, if it is there, it indicates the positivity and acute infectivity phase is still high, because based upon your HBeAg levels, it will be determining that whether you need to start the patient or antiviral support is needed or not. So most of the time, the spontaneous improvement may occur following HBeAg positive seroconversion with a decline in HBV replication and normalization of ALT levels. So we need to see HBeAg is spontaneously clearing or not, HBV replication is coming out or not, with normalization of ALT is there or not. So If this thing is being there, then we can monitor the patient consecutively. How will you measure the DNA levels? Because what they have been mentioning that as per the studies, once a patient is going to land up with cirrhosis and other possibility, we need to frequently monitor every 3 monthly as per various portion statement what they mentioned. So DNA measurement is the most important thing along with that. So how are you going to look for that? See, you need to take, it can be used as a copies per ml or by international units per ml. So suppose, for example, if the DNA is going to come around 10,000 copies, you need to divide the value by 5, which shows around 2,000 IU per ml. And for example, if you are going to have around 1 million copies, it means around 2 lakhs international units per ml of copies will be there. So DNA assessment can be used to assess the clinical progression, which means the disease progression is there or not. So how to assess your severity as what have been discussed, the baseline value, APRI measurement, along with your clinical presentation, look for evidence of compensation or decompensation, along with evidence of your, your baseline ultrasound as well as fibrous scan as well as your portal Doppler. And apart from that, you look for evidence of alpha fetoprotein every 3 monthly intervals, 3 months to 6 monthly intervals for a patient in the background of a compensated cirrhosis to show evidence of hepatocellular carcinoma is there or not. So management part is such a complicated area to discuss because we need to consider to whom to treat, when to treat, how to treat. It's the most important thing because it's critical for most of the patients with hepatitis B because most of the scenarios will be a lifelong treatment. So before initiating the treatment, we need to discuss whom to treat because once a patient is having persistent, once a patient being landed up in cirrhosis, either it is compensated or decompensated, regardless of ALT levels or regardless of HbA1c, regardless of HbA DNA, you initiate the patient on treatment. Next to that, if the patient is showing evidence of if the patient is going to be more than 30 years and we are going to have a persistently abnormal ALT levels, even then the patient is not going to have evidence of cirrhosis, and HbA DNA, if it is going to be more than 20,000, regardless of your HbE status, it's better to start in this kind of patient also on treatment. Once a patient HBV replication is low and HBV DNA, if it is going to be low in the background, if the patient's cirrhotic background, if it is not there, then at that point of juncture, we can wait, watch and monitor, and we can serially assess and whether the patient is progressing to cirrhosis or not. See, this is the outline. How are you going to explain HBeAg positive and non-cirrhotic background? And next slide is about non-cirrhotic HBeAg negative chronic hepatitis B. So if you're going to look for HBeAg positive scenarios, it should be the HBV DNA. If it is going, you need to take the cutoff of DNA more than 20,000 to initiate the patient on treatment. If the patient DNA, if it is going to be more than 20,000, along with if the patient is going to be ALT levels, if it is going to be more than 2 times of the upper limit of normal, then at that point of juncture, you can initiate the patient on treatment and serially every 3 monthly interval, you can monitor the patient whether it is improving or not, as what I've been discussed initially. And apart from that, whether you need to continue the treatment based upon whether there is any seroconversion is there or not. If there is no further seroconversion, then at that point of juncture, better to continue the treatment for a longer duration of time. And in this scenario, what they've been taken into account, see, this is HBeAg negative patient. So if you're going to tackle a HBeAg negative, so always you need to take the DNA for more than 2,000 levels. So if the DNA, if it is going to be more than 2,000, and if your ALT is going to be more than 2 times of the upper limit of normal, then there is a consideration for you to initiate the treatment initiate the treatment, observe for 3 months and continually monitor the patient. But if there is evidence of hepatic decompensation or worsening, then you need to step up the management therapy. Along with, you need to obtain the histology, assess the fibrotic index, if there is evidence of any worsening of scenarios is there or not. As we all know, the major recommended drugs are tenofovir and entecavir. If you're going to look into that, once a patient is going for decompensation, we need to switch over to higher dose of entecavir. And tenofovir alafenamide also can be considered, or at a dose of around 25 milligrams once daily can be considered. The pediatric age group is one important entity that should not be missed because perinatally acquired infection is one of the most important thing. And if you're going to manage a patient, children in the age group, there are some oral solutions there. So if you're going to manage in the age, if the in pediatric age group, the weight is almost around 10 to 11 kg, then we can give around 3 ml. but based upon if the weight is going to be around 30 kg of more than 30 kg, then it's ideal to give a full dose, which means it's a 10 ml solution, which is almost around 0.5 milligrams of entecavir. So what is the selection for antiviral drug in chronic hepatitis B is one of the most important things. So either you can use entecavir or you can go for tenofovir. When entecavir is more preferred if the patient is having more than 60 years, and if the patient is going to have any bony disease, or if there is any evidence of fragile fracture, osteoporotic changes, and mild altered in renal function, at that point of juncture, you can consider. But once the patient is going to have a worsening, tenofovir alafenamide also can be considered as a drug of choice in patients with reduced renal function or bone disease, and drugs with low barrier to resistance like lamivudine, adifovir, telbuvudine are available but not recommended. But some evidence is still showing that PEG interferon can be considered in a subgroup of non-cirrhotics where a finite therapy might achieve a sustained response, can be considered in the management, but it's only a substantial level of population, not for the most of the persons. So when to stop treatment, which means all persons with cirrhosis based upon clinical evidence, as we discussed, APRI score more than 2, we require lifelong support of nucleoside analogs. So the discontinuation of treatment of hepatitis B is usually not recommended and should be done only at the specialized centers. Decision to discontinue therapy requires careful. Just a minute. So we need to do a careful clinical consideration has to be done. So with persistent HbS-AG loss after 1 year of consolidation treatment, then at that point of juncture, we can consider the patient to discontinue, or HbE-AG loss and seroconversion to anti-HbE after completion of 1 year, preferably 3 years of additional treatment with persistently normal ALT levels and undetectable HbE DNA levels, then at that point of juncture, you can consider the patient to discontinue the treatment. So relapse may occur after stopping the therapy. So you need to be very, very cautious. So always you need to monitor the patient. There are 3 types of monitoring, which means the monitoring for the clinical presentations, and monitor for your drug response, and monitor the patient whether the patient is going for hepatocellular carcinoma. So these are all the various monitoring parameters like your basic blood parameters, APRI, fibroscanase, what have been discussed. So how are you going to monitor, see whether the HbE DNA, monthly ALT levels, and 3 monthly HbE levels, all those things. Once a patient is progressing in active chronic hepatitis B with persistently normal ALT and HbE DNA, if it is going to be less than 20,000, then at that point of time, you can monitor the patient annually. So more frequent monitoring is needed if the patient is going to land up with advanced fibrotic and cirrhotic changes. Both around 3 to 6 monthly monitoring is most important. So discontinued treatment, you need to be very, very cautious because there are some possibilities for that kind of patients can go for evidence of reactivation. If the patient is going to be on any other medications, if the patient is going to be immunosuppressive or chemotherapy or any other complications, if it is going to be initiated at that point of time, when you're going to even after discontinuation of treatment, we need to assess whether the patient is going for worsening of presentation or reactivation. So monitoring for disease progression and treatment response is most important, as I've already been discussed. So how are you going to monitor based upon your invasive and non-invasive modality? Liver biopsy also can be considered if you're going to manage a patient with chronic hepatitis B. But in Indian scenario, how far it is going to be successful, how frequently we are being doing is not, it's still we need more papers to be validated. Apart from that, more frequent monitoring in that what have been discussed, if the patient is having a DNA levels around 2,000 to 20,000 with abnormal ALT, and this with the patients having around coexisting hepatitis HIV infection, at that point of time, we need to monitor this patient more frequently. And apart from that, we need to look for evidence of various toxicity of the drugs. Sometimes if you're going to subject the patient with tenofovir or entecavir, we need to look for the renal parameters and other things. Growth monitoring is the most important. And all those things has to be done in a proper manner. Once a patient is going to have a renal impairment, then at that point of time, if the creatinine clearance, if it is going to be less than 10, no possibility, no role of giving tenofovir for this kind of patients. At the once a patient is having creatinine clearance of less than 10 and who is not on any hemodialysis. As I discussed with you, monitoring for hepatocellular carcinoma is the most important surveillance with the basic ultrasound as well as your alpha fetoprotein levels every 6 months is the most important thing to look over. The patients having family history, cirrhotic background, or age presentation of more than 40. in this kind of scenario. So, and there are some special situations. Always you should remember pregnancy. In pregnant women, always the predominant the molecule we can consider is, I mean, tenofovir can be used. And apart from that, so once the patient is pregnant, serial monitoring of the liver function and other parameters, and no need to stop the medications if the patient is pregnant. And once the baby born, newborn prophylaxis is the most important. And for the pregnant woman, vaccination doesn't going to have any major impact. So newborn, what is the thing you need to give? 3 doses of vaccination is the most important thing. The birth dose has to be given in an immediate period. Along with, you can give immunoglobulin, hepatitis B immunoglobulin can be given to the patient. But how far once a patient, if the patient having acute severe hepatitis B, at that point of juncture, if the mother is going to have a worsening of presentation, then it is high possible indications for you to consider for the hepatitis B immunoglobulin. If at all, if you're going to give, you need to give 0.5 ml in the opposite thigh immediately within 12 hours or at most maximum by 24 hours of period. You need to give hepatitis B immunoglobulin along with hepatitis B vaccine. First dose has to be initiated as early as possible. This is what about hepatitis B immunoglobulin, what have been considered. And breastfeeding, no harm always in Indian scenario has been multiple data from me, Delhi as well as from Chennai. Very few data have been reported that. So breastfeeding, no harm in stopping unless and otherwise if there is any active oozing or any active discharge. Even for HIV positive patients, as per Indian scenario or the various papers, what have been mentioned. So breastfeeding is not an absolute contraindication unless and otherwise if the patient is having any active infections. So breastfeeding is always a potent way to continue to prevent, because neonatal sepsis is one of the most common complications will be reported. Because if you're going to have the breastfeeding, if the baby is going to be subjected with the complementary or any other supplementary feeding, so at that point of juncture, the worsening of other neonatal septicemia and other complications will definitely going to take on at that point of juncture. So always it's better to continue the breastfeeding. And first 1 year of age, no major indication for testing for hepatitis B. So you need to wait the baby for till the baby crosses almost a year of age. Once the baby crosses the infancy and entry into the toddler phase, at that point of juncture, you can consider for hepatitis B testing is needed or not. So HIV co-infection, always you should remember, you need to treat the patient consecutively because high rate of viral replication, the CD4 activity will definitely going to come down high, and you're having a worsening of DNA polymerase, and all those things is going to be there if the patient is going to have hepatitis B as well as HIV co-infection. So once the patient is going to land with HBV as well as HIV co-infection, so you need to initiate the patient with tenofovir-based regimen as well as lamivudine, other support can be initiated, because tenofovir and lamivudine along with support, if you're going to consider azidothioprine-based regimen, so it's one of the best line of drugs if you're going to manage a patient with HIV as well as HBV, because HIV, HBV co-infections will worsen the scenario more than 2 to 3 times of the upper limits of normal. So always you need to tackle very properly, and serial monitoring for the CD4 levels. Also, you need to look for your HBV DNA levels, and you need to also look for evidence of HCV coexistence, whether it is there or not, and the other vaccination possibilities, whether it is needed or not, to be considered if you're going to manage a patient with hepatitis B and HCV co-infection, because there might be evidence of immune reconstitution hepatitis will be there because of your direct drug-induced liver injury. At that point of juncture also, that kind of patient will have further worsening. All these things has to be analyzed properly if you're planning to manage a patient with HBV, HIV co-infected persons. So this is what the treatment lamivudine, tenofovir, as well as efavirenz. Some drug regimens also, azidothioprine also being considered if you're going to manage a patient with HIV, HBV co-infections. So the treatment strategies, the main aim is to improve HBsAg loss, HBsAg loss, also a high rate of HBV DNA suppression, which is almost around 90% of the population to be attained properly. So if ARVs need to be changed because of HIV drug resistance or some drug toxicity, then tenofovir and lamivudine most of the time should be continued, and unless no specific contraindication for tenofovir. So how do you going to prevent? So we can give vaccination, as we all well know. Once a patient is going for hepatitis B, in order to prevent the hepatitis B infection, there are well-known vaccination in the newborn period itself, as per your Indian Academy of Pediatric program. It's what they mentioned. You can give the 0 dose, 1 and 6 month period, or you can give 0, 2, 3 and 6 month period. All those things can be considered. Even the single dose of vaccine now, along with DTP, hepatitis B, pentavalent vaccine, so many things are there. But once the patient is going to be having immunocompromised status, or the patient is going to have long-term steroid support or any other coexisting major system involvement, then you need to double the dose of your vaccination, which is almost around 40 micrograms of the dose. And you need to give 4 doses of the regimen to be given if you're planning to monitor, if you're planning to vaccinate this kind of persons. And also you need to look for anti-HBs AG levels, anti-HBs antibody, if it is going to be more than 10, which means the patient is having a reasonable immunity to that. And this kind of patients is not a major candidate for vaccinations. So before concluding, always you should remember hepatitis B is one of the most common complex entity that what we have been tackling. And always we need to see in which frame of hepatitis B we are going to present. And if the patient is having acute hepatitis B or if the patient is having chronic hepatitis B, with what is the basic resources, with what is the basic line of drugs, what we are having right now, along with that, what is the basic investigation we can plan, whether the patient DNA or basic lab parameters, ultrasound or fibroscan or endoscopic surveillance, how are you going to impact, whether the family surveillance, how are you going to do, all those things has to be taken into account if you are going to manage a patient with hepatitis B, if you want to succeed this national hepatitis B control program successfully. With this, I would like to rest my presentation, and I'm happy to take up your questions if anything is there to take on. Thanking you all for patient listening.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Gopalakrishnan, sir.
So much.
So anything is there to share on, sir? We will ready to share, sir.
No,
If nothing means, we will proceed with the next session, sir.
Arun, I'm Dr. Kavita. Can you
Madam,
Can
please
you hear
tell
me?
madam. Good morning, madam.
I just have a question. Yeah,
Yes,
good morning. I just have a question. The thing is, doing the viral load, we are not able to get in the MGR University or somewhere. They are just giving less than 1,000 copies or more than 1,000 copies.
Yes,
How to
madam.
overcome this?
That we need to talk to the concerned person. That is one of the most important thing, madam, because in our centers only, because if you are going to do outside, most of the time you can able to get a good viral load. But here, what they are doing based upon what is
It's
the
given
technology.
only less than 1,000 or more than 1,000.
So based upon only less than 1,000 or more than 1,000, what we can consider, it can be considered as more than 2,000, madam. Along with that, we need to consider other parameters if the patient is having HbA
No,
positivity or
ma'am,
not.
see, it is okay in the patient if they are having any immunocompromised, or it is okay. If they are not immunocompromised, young patients coming, and what they do is they cross-check somewhere else and coming and fighting with us. My load is this much, you have not started on me on drugs. So how should I proceed?
That's what, madam. We need to look for all other parameters. What is the age criteria we are treating? That what have been discussed.
We have seen the age, we have done the fibrosis scan, everything is okay. But sometimes the persistent upper limit of normal of ALT will be little bit high, 2 times. or
Then
3
we
times
initiate the
upper limit.
treatment, madam. Then we will initiate
Yeah,
the treatment.
initiate the treatment. We are initiating the treatment. But
Yes,
sometimes
ma'am.
we find difficult to explain them about the copies. So
That's
can we have somewhere else where we can do and get the correct number of copies? Because in the MGR University, we are getting only less than 4,000 or more than 1,000. It is not given how many copies are available in each patient. So
Sure, madam.
can we get it somewhere done in this through this mission?
That we need to discuss with the professor and HOD, Dr. Narayanasamy sir, to overcome all these things, madam. That I'm not
Yeah,
very sure.
I just want to project
But
this.
definitely we will enlist your doubt regarding this to our professor, madam. Yes, madam.
Yeah, because SAR should know that to help, because if it is done in RDTH, it's different. They have given the number of copies. But
Very
sometimes
few
most of
patients.
the patients, yeah, very few patients. And most of the time the patient going to MGR University is coming back after a month. So we find it difficult. Because
ma'am.
as we are in a government hospital, we cannot refer them to the private centers to do. So how
Sure,
to
ma'am.
overcome this also can be explained in future.
Sure, madam. We will put this question to our professor and then we will come up with the answer for you, madam.
Yeah, thank you.
Yes, madam. Anything else to discuss, sir? If nothing is there, means thank you very much for patient listening, sir. So what about next? Sir?
Hello, Dr. Arun sir. For doing
Yeah, Gopalakrishnan sir, good
PCR.
morning. Nice meeting you.
Good morning.
Yes,
Dr.
sir.
Arun, I have a doubt. For doing viral load and all, will the facilities will be provided for all the hospitals like us?
It has to
Tirupur
be,
is
sir.
a
It
new
has to
medical-
be. It has to be as per National Viral Hepatitis Control Program, sir. It has to be.
Okay. Because we a lot of cases we have got more than 50 patients already.
Yes,
They are
sir.
getting drugs from Coimbatore Medical College only. Tirupur patients.
Sure, sir. Yes, sir.
And if it is being implemented, they will be benefited. That's why. Thank you.
Sure, sir. Thank you, sir. Thank you. So our target, we need to be hepatitis-free countries. That's the most important by 2030. So now we are going to invite our next speaker, sir, Dr. Shanti Selvi Madam, who is going to discuss something on hepatitis E, sir. Thank you very much for patient listening.
So, let the next level in guidance for the system. My record பண்ணிருக்கீங்க. My telegram பண்ணிருக்கோம் சார்.
Okay.
Yes, sir, supervisor, sir. Sir. Next position can be 72 hours for the check. அதே மாதிரி 0 dose வந்து
எடுத்துறியா எடுத்துறியா எடுத்துறியா
Small announcement, sir. Sir, attendance எடுக்கிறேன் sir. District wise, just respond பண்ணுங்க sir. அரியலூர். Sir, அரியலூர் connect ஆயிருக்கீங்களா? செங்கல்பட்டு. செங்கல்பட்டு. Sir, audible, sir.
Audible, madam.
Sir, செங்கல்பட்டு connect ஆயிருக்கீங்களா sir? கோயம்புத்தூர்.
Yeah, we are on. Hello. Hello, we are on.
Sir, கோயம்புத்தூர். Sir, கோயம்புத்தூர் connect ஆயிருக்கீங்களா? Attendance purpose-காக respond பண்ணுங்க sir.
Yeah, connect ஆயிருக்கோம். We are on.
கோயம்புத்தூர்.
We are on. We are connected.
கடலூர். கடலூர். தர்மபுரி.
Hello, ma'am. We are contacting from Coimbatore.
Yeah. கடலூர் ma'am. கடலூர்.
Yes, madam.
Yes, sir. தர்மபுரி.
Yes, madam. Present, madam.
Yes, sir. திண்டுக்கல். திண்டுக்கல். ஈரோடு. ஈரோடு. சார் ஈரோடு கனெக்ட் ஆயிருக்கீங்களா சார்? சார் கைண்ட்லி ரெஸ்பாண்ட் பண்ணுங்க சார் ப்ளீஸ் சார். கள்ளக்குறிச்சி. கள்ளக்குறிச்சி. காஞ்சிபுரம். சார் காஞ்சிபுரம் கனெக்ட் ஆயிருக்கீங்களா? கன்னியாகுமரி. கன்னியாகுமரி. சார் கன்னியாகுமரி கனெக்ட் ஆயிருக்கீங்களா? கரூர்.
Connected, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
கரூர் சார்.
Yes, ma'am. Available.
Thank you, sir. கிருஷ்ணகிரி, கிருஷ்ணகிரி, மதுரை.
Connected, madam.
Yes, sir. Thank you, sir. Nagapattinam, Nagapattinam. Sir, Nagapattinam connect ஆயிருக்கீங்களா? நாமக்கல், நாமக்கல், பெரம்பலூர், புதுக்கோட்டை. Yes, sir. Thank you, sir. ராமநாதபுரம். Sir, ராம்நாடு யாராவது கனெக்ட் ஆயிருக்கீங்களா? ராணிப்பேட், சேலம்.
Yes,
Sir,
Salem
சேலம்
connected.
கனெக்ட் ஆயிருக்கீங்களா சார்?
Yes, yes, Salem connected.
Thank you, sir. சிவகங்கை.
Yes, madam, connected.
Thank you, sir. தென்காசி, தென்காசி, தஞ்சாவூர்.
மேடம் தென்காசி தனியா இல்ல மேடம்.
Sir, தென்காசி.
ஹலோ.
Yes, sir. Thank you, sir. தென்காசி district headquarters. Any
தென்காசிக்கு
physician?
தனியா
Sir, 38 district treatment center start பண்ண சொல்லி நாங்க வந்து ஆல்ரெடி மெயில் டிஎம்இக்கு டீன்க்கு எல்லாத்துக்கும் ஜேடிக்கு எல்லாத்துக்கும் மெயில் கம்யூனிகேட் பண்ணிட்டோம் சார். வேறெவர் மெடிக்கல் காலேஜ் இல்லாத இடத்துல டிஸ்ட்ரிக்ட் ஹெட் குவார்ட்டர்ஸ் ஹாஸ்பிட்டல் இஸ் த ட்ரீட்மெண்ட் சென்டர் ஃபார் வைரல் ஹெப்படைட்டிஸ் மேனேஜ்மெண்ட் யூனிட் சார். அங்க இருக்கக்கூடிய பிசிஷியனோ அல்லது கேஸ்ட்ரோன்டாலஜிஸ்டோ இஸ் த டிஸ்ட்ரிக்ட் நோடல் ஆஃபீஸர் ஆஃப் தட் சென்டர் சார். சார் எங்களுக்கு இன்னும் ஜேடிஹெச்எஸ் கிட்ட இருந்து யாரு நோடல் ஆஃபீஸர் கம்யூனிகேட் ஆகல சார். அதனால இந்த ட்ரைனிங்ல தான் உங்களோட நேம் எல்லாமே நாங்க எடுத்துக்க போறோம் சார். ஸோ தென்காசியோட டிஸ்ட்ரிக்ட் ஹெட் குவார்ட்டர்ஸ் ஹாஸ்பிட்டல் இஸ் த ட்ரீட்மெண்ட் டெசிக்னேட்டட் ட்ரீட்மெண்ட் சென்டர் ஃபார் வைரல் ஹெப்படைட்டிஸ் சார். ஆல்ரெடி கம்யூனிகேஷன் இன்ஸ்ட்ரக்ஷன் கம்யூனிகேட்டட் சார். சார் நீல்கிரிஸ், நீல்கிரிஸ் யாராவது கனெக்ட் ஆயிருக்கீங்களா சார்? தேனி சார், தேனி மெடிக்கல் காலேஜ். தேனி வந்திருக்கீங்களா சார்? சார் தேனி சார் கைண்ட்லி ரெஸ்பாண்ட் பண்ணுங்க சார். தேனி, திருவள்ளூர், திருவள்ளூர், திருவாரூர் சார், திருவாரூர் மெடிக்கல் காலேஜ் சார், திருவாரூர்.
They must have done better. They will ask them, you keep it.
திருச்சி,
You keep it unavailable.
எல்லாரும் மியூட் பண்ணுங்க. திருச்சி சார், திருச்சி யாராவது கனெக்ட் ஆயிருக்கீங்களா? திருச்சி மெடிக்கல் காலேஜ் சார். திருநெல்வேலி சார், திருநெல்வேலி. தேங்க்யூ சார், தேங்க்யூ சார். திருப்பத்தூர்
மேம், திருச்சி மேம், திருச்சி ஜேடி ஆபீஸ் சைடுல இருந்து ஐடி கோஆர்டினேட்டர் லைன்ல இருக்கேன் மேம்.
சார் திருச்சி
ஜேடி ஆபீஸ் சைடுல இருந்து ஐடி கோஆர்டினேட்டர் மேம், நாசர் அலி.
எஸ் சார், தேங்க்யூ சார். திருப்பத்தூர் சார், திருப்பத்தூர் சார், திருப்பத்தூர் சார், திருப்பத்தூர் இருக்கீங்களா சார்?
அட்டெண்டன்ஸ் மாதிரி எடுத்துட்டு இருக்காங்க மேடம். அட்டெண்டன்ஸ் மாதிரி கேட்டுட்டு இருக்காங்க
சார். திருப்பத்தூர் சார், திருப்பத்தூர் தானே? திருப்பூரா? திருப்பூரா சார்? திருப்பூர்
மேடம், திருப்பூர் மேடம்.
ஓகே சார், தேங்க்யூ சார். திருவண்ணாமலை, திருவண்ணாமலை மெடிக்கல் காலேஜ் சார், திருவண்ணாமலை மெடிக்கல் காலேஜ். தூத்துக்குடி சார், தூத்துக்குடியில இருந்து யார் கனெக்ட் ஆயிருக்கீங்க சார்? தூத்துக்குடி சார், தூத்துக்குடி மெடிக்கல் காலேஜ். வெள்ளூர், வெள்ளூர் சார், வெள்ளூர் மெடிக்கல் காலேஜ். விழுப்புரம்,
விழுப்புரம் கனெக்டட் மேடம்.
எஸ் சார், தேங்க்யூ சார். விருதுநகர் சார், விருதுநகர்ல இருந்து ரெஸ்பாண்ட் பண்ணுங்க சார். விருதுநகர் சார் மதியம் ஆஃப்டர் லஞ்ச் செக்ரட்டரி சார் வந்து உங்களுக்கு ஒரு இன்ட்ரோடக்ஷன் ஸ்பீச் கொடுப்பாங்க சார். கனெக்ட் ஆகாத டிஸ்ட்ரிக்ட் உங்களுக்கு நெய்பர் டிஸ்ட்ரிக்ட் யாராவது இருந்தாங்கன்னா அவங்களுக்கு இன்டிமேட் பண்ணுங்க சார். நானும் இப்போ எல்லாருக்கும் கால் பண்ண போறேன் சார். ஆஃப்டர்நூன் செக்ரட்டரி சார் 10 minutes மட்டும் உங்ககிட்ட வந்து பேசுவாங்க சார் வைரல் ஹெப்படைட்டிஸ் பத்தி. தேங்க்யூ சார். மேடம் இப்போ கிளாஸ் கன்டினியூ பண்ணுவாங்க சார்.
Okay. So, good morning. I welcome everyone for this short topic. This is Dr. Shanti Selvi, who is going to present on hepatitis E. Hepatitis E is a non-enveloped single-stranded RNA virus which belongs to the family of Hepavirus, and the main mode of transmission is fecal oral route. Usually, the presence is an outbreak-prone disease, and sporadic cases are also reported, and the incubation period is around 2 to 10 weeks. Madam, one second. Madam, 1 second. 1 second. Excuse me. So, usually present. Is it audible? Am I audible? Can everyone hear me?
Yes.
Audible, madam.
Shall I proceed?
Yes, madam. Yes, madam.
Okay, sir. So, how do it present? It usually presents as an acute viral syndrome manifesting with mild fever, with marked loss of appetite, aversion to food, upper abdominal discomfort, nausea, and vomiting. And once these non-specific symptoms starts resolving, the jaundice starts appearing, and it usually persists for 1 to 6 weeks, and then it resolves gradually. So in children, it is usually asymptomatic or can present as a mild illness without any jaundice. Whereas in adults, it presents as a prolonged cholestatic phase with significant itching. And it can also present as acute liver failure, especially in females who are pregnant. And this is very much common when compared to males and non-pregnant females. And the prevalence is about 0 to 5% in pregnant women. So how do we diagnose this? It is usually indistinguishable from other causes of acute viral hepatitis. So when do we suspect hepatitis E infection? When there is, we strongly suspect in settings such as occurrence of several cases in localities where there is endemic areas, and in settings with risk of water contamination, and in pregnant females after excluding hepatitis A infection. So how do we diagnose? It is diagnosed on the basis of detection of specific IgM antibodies in the patient's blood, and the serum bilirubin level will be around 2.5, with ALT nearly 10 times the upper limit of normal. And how do we manage this? There is no specific treatment available for acute infection. Usually it is a self-limiting disease, and hospitalization is usually not required. Whereas in patients with fulminant liver failure and in symptomatic pregnant females, hospitalization is very much required. And also in patients with
mute பண்ணிடுறோம்.
Should I continue?
நீங்க கண்டினியூ பண்ணுங்க. நீங்க கண்டினியூ பண்ணுங்க.
Immunosuppressed patients, they usually develop chronic hepatitis E infection, and they usually respond to an antiviral drug, which is ribavirin. And patients who don't respond to 6 months of ribavirin, they can be started on interferon, and there are studies that say that interferon has been used successfully in such patients. This is okay. And there are certain population groups who are at higher risk for severe disease. In patients with, in pregnant females, and patients with pre-existing liver disease, and patients who are under immunosuppression. And in HIV epidemics, the fulminant hepatitis occurs in disproportionate rate in pregnant females. And the overall case fatality rates from hepatitis E is around 0.1 to 4%, whereas the case fatality rate among pregnant females are very much higher, being around 10%. So it is very much important to recognize these patients since they require hospitalization and intensive care. So management of acute viral hepatitis during pregnancy, these patients are usually managed in a hospital where there is ICU facilities with blood banks and very good obstetric services. We have to monitor blood pressure, and we need to exclude toxemia of pregnancy. Adequate oral intake should be given and adequate hydration should be maintained. They should be closely monitored for development of signs of acute liver failure. And the premature induction of labor need not be done in patients who don't have ALF or in any other patients. But if we suspect spontaneous premature rupture of membranes or premature labor, they should be started on antibiotics and vitamin K injections 10 IV, and this should be repeated after 24 hours. Monitoring fetal heart rate and blood transfusion should be done if there is any postpartum bleeding. And if the fetus is more than 34 to 36 weeks, induction of labor should be done. Otherwise, it should be managed conservatively. And and in continuation, in patients where there is intrauterine death, so induction of labor should be considered who are not in acute liver failure. But if the mother has acute liver failure, labor should not be induced. And so oxytocin should be given after delivery to prevent postpartum bleeding. And if the bleeding occurs, oxytocin infusion should be given along, and ergometrin or misoprostol can be added along with blood transfusion if necessary. And how to manage the newborn? We have to assess for hypothermia and hypoglycemia, and they should be treated if present. They should be given vitamin K, and normal vaccines can be given, and breastfeeding can be started if the mother is able to nurse. Usually the patients, pregnant females develop acute liver failure because of acute HIV infection. So how do we manage this? What is the definition? Acute liver failure is defined as a severe injury to a previously normal liver, presenting initially as jaundice and followed by altered mental status, that is hepatic encephalopathy, within 4 weeks of the onset of jaundice. Hepatic encephalopathy manifests as mental changes, restlessness, and altered sleep pattern with altered consciousness and persistent vomiting. There may be also associated cerebral edema, which can manifest as a slow heart rate, high BP, and irregular respiration. And coagulopathy can also occur in patients, and they can manifest as bleeding from one or more body sites. And they can also have other complications such as secondary bacterial infection, which may lead on to sepsis, renal failure, multi-organ failure, and they have a very high risk of death. When do we suspect acute liver failure or severe acute hepatitis? So these are these patients, they usually present with the following symptoms, that is severe or persistent nausea and vomiting with the changes in the mental state, excessive sleepiness, irritability, agitation, disorientation, confusion, abdominal behavior, or decreased level of consciousness. They can have a spontaneous bleeding from the nasal, oral, and vaginal sites. They can have repeated episodes of hypoglycemia and fever, which they're not able to manage with tepid sponging, and dehydration or inability to maintain the oral hydration, or patient not able to pass urine. Before that, we have to exclude other differential diagnoses such as malaria, dengue infection, leptospirosis, sepsis, cholangitis, liver abscess, drug toxicity, and also other hepatitis A infection, B and C, and other infections. So how do we manage those patients who are suspected to have ALF? They should be hospitalized. And apart from this, hospitalization should also be considered in patients with acute hepatitis or who are at risk of developing ALF, that is pregnant females with hepatitis E in the last trimester, and those with underlying chronic liver dysfunction. These patients are preferably managed in ICU or in high dependency units. So how do we manage? We need to do a close observation and monitoring of vital signs, changes in sensorium and bleeding and urine output. And the bed end should be head end should be elevated with the nil oral, and fluid and electrolytes should be maintained. Overhydration and hyponatremia should be avoided since they worsen the cerebral edema, and bed sores should be prevented, and blood sugars should be monitored, and if present, they should be treated. And fever should be managed with sponging and paracetamol if needed. Patients who have encephalopathy should receive lactulose via the NG tube, 30 ml 2 to 3 times per day initially, and this is adjusted to produce 2 to 3 soft stools daily, and care should be taken to avoid diarrhea. Mannitol should be given, it should be considered in patients with a prominent cerebral edema, provided the urine output is adequate. All these, usually patients should be immediately transferred to a tertiary care hospital where there is facilities for transplant and other ICU management. And vitamin K should be administered if coagulopathy is present, and identification and treatment of other complications should also be done. Bacterial infections are very common in such patients, and prophylactic antibiotics should be started at the earliest. Stress ulcers and bleeding should be addressed with H2 receptor antagonist or PPIs. Bleedings can be managed with blood or FFP transfusion, and seizures can be managed with diazepam, and IV fluids should be given to avoid shock and oxygen to maintain the saturation. And there are certain things which should be avoided in such patients. That is, we have to avoid invasive procedures that carry a very high risk of bleeding, avoid hepatotoxic drugs and drugs that increase the risk of bleeding, such as aspirin and NSAIDs, avoid sedatives, corticosteroids. And specific antiviral agents, they don't have much role in management of these patients, but it can be given in specific situations, such as when there is co-infection with acute severe hepatitis B. So the important thing is patients should be referred to a tertiary care center where there is a transplant facility, and this should be done without any delay. And during the transport, patients who have encephalopathy should be intubated and sedated, and appropriate fluids should be given for volume resuscitation, and patients should be maintained with a normoglycemic status, and vasopressors should be made available, and mannitol should be made available for management of raised ICT during the transport. Thank you. So I'd like to answer any of your questions. If audible, madam? I don't think so.
Sir, audible, sir? Sir, respond பண்ணுங்க, sir.
So is it audible? So can anyone hear me?
You are audible. Ma'am, audible, ma'am.
Yes, madam, audible.
Okay, sir. I'd like to answer your questions if you have any doubts.
Sir, any questions, sir?
How commonly hepatitis E is seen in India, in Tamil Nadu?
Tamil Nadu, we don't have any status, sir, but as far as India is concerned, it is very much common, especially in pregnant females, and it carries a very high mortality when compared to males and non-pregnant females. It is a very common cause of acute liver failure in pregnant women.
Yeah, because should we test for hepatitis E in all cases of acute hepatitis?
Of course,
Because
yes.
Very,
At
very
the time
rarely
of
we are seeing
presentation.
acute hepatitis.
Yes, of course, at the time of presentation.
Yeah,
When a patient presents
otherwise,
with
when we
jaundice,
exclude other conditions, shall we test for hepatitis E?
Pardon, sir, I don't get you.
Yeah, should we test all cases of acute hepatitis for hepatitis E straight away? Or when we are not able to fix the etiology, we can do hepatitis E testing, because very rarely we are seeing hepatitis E cases here.
Of course, it is rare, but it should be done at the time of presentation along with the other investigations, along with the other. Yes.
And treatment is like any other acute hepatitis, purely symptomatic treatment.
Yes, usually it is a self-limiting disease. So hospitalization is not required. It is a conservative only. But only when you suspect that the patient will go in for ALF or severe acute hepatitis, especially for those patients who are at risk, that is pregnant females, or in patients who have underlying liver disease, or in patients who are under immunosuppressives, these patients, they need hospitalization and that they can be monitored.
And can we recommend ribavirin for a pregnant patient? Because you have recommended ribavirin as a treatment for hepatitis E if it is indicated.
Yes,
and we are
yes, sir.
worried about only about pregnant women.
Yes.
And can we give ribavirin for a pregnant woman?
There are not much studies on pregnant females, sir. There are no studies in pregnant female.
Because you have suggested only drugs. One is interferon,
Yes.
one is ribavirin. Both of these drugs are contraindicated in pregnancy.
Yes, yes,
And
yes,
our
of course.
worry is only pregnancy, third trimester, hepatitis C, they may go in for ALF.
Of course it is, sir. Yes, yes. It is contraindicated in pregnant women.
So as on for pregnant ladies, we don't have any drug to treat hepatitis.
We don't have any other drug.
Yeah. Correct, madam. Right. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you so much. Thank you for patient listening.
Physician level இருக்காங்கம்மா.
இருக்காங்களா?
சார் ஏதாவது கொஸ்டின் இருந்தா கேளுங்க சார். எனி கொஸ்டின் சார்?
Oh, shall I go?
Yes, ma'am. Thank you, sir. Sir, small announcement. சார் இப்போ லஞ்ச் பிரேக் போயிட்டு 2 o'clock எல்லாருமே கனெக்ட் ஆயிருங்க சார். 2 o'clock வந்து ஹெப்படைட்டிஸ் சி மேனேஜ்மெண்ட். ஆஃப்டர் தென் அடிஷனல் டைரக்டர் NHM will take operational guidelines and other finance management, sir. So now lunch break, sir. 2 o'clock again we will meet, sir. Thank you, sir. அப்படியே